Hello everybody, and welcome back to the channel. We appreciate you joining us today. Well, we've got another pistol video for you today, and this is actually by request. I've had several people in the comments section that have been asking to see more guns that were not on the higher end, more everyday affordable type firearms. And I've also had some requests for this particular pistol that we're going to talk about today. And that is the Sccy CPX-2, and this has got the Crimson Trace red dot on it. How does this gun stack up to some of its competition? Is it worth it? Is it something you want to carry? We're going to address all those questions, cover all the features, and help you decide on all that in just a minute. All right, once again, welcome back. We really appreciate you joining us here today. So once again, we've got the Sccy CPX-2 here. And we just want to thank our friends over at Don's Weaponry for providing us this beautiful example of the CPX-2 with the Crimson Trace red dot on it today for our tabletop review. They're a big supporter of firearm safety and education, and we can't thank them enough. Just want to take a moment to thank all of our viewers and subscribers. If this is your first time watching, or if you've been watching and you haven't had a chance to do so, do us a favor. If you can locate that little subscribe button there in the lower right hand portion of your computer screen and give that a poke. And if you're on a mobile device, you can scroll down below the video and you can hit subscribe and hit the bell icon and let you know whenever we do something new. It helps us out a lot, and we really, really appreciate it. So I was intrigued at the idea of taking a look at this pistol, mainly because just by nature of what's popular and by nature of some of the guns that I look to get myself, we end up talking about a lot of really high-end pistols. And I think it's only fair that we need to look at some more of the offerings out there that are more of everyday kind of purchase that, hey, maybe I don't have $800 to spend on a carry gun. What are some other options? Well, with that in mind, this is why we're looking at the Sccy CPX-2. So we always like to start off with a little size comparison, of course, and I've got a couple of different things I'm going to do. Now, the first thing I'm going to compare it to is obviously not going to be exactly the same, but it's going to give you an idea, mainly because this is a pretty popular pistol. A lot of people are into this one. And of course, this is our P365. This is the X Romeo Zero I've got here. Now, looking at it, you can see that the overall length of the pistols is pretty close. They both have pretty good sized trigger guards. Obviously, you can see the grip on the Sccy is a lot fatter than on the SIG. And, that's one of the things that this SIG is known for is high capacity in a really small platform. So I just wanted you to see, because if you can see how small this one is, it lets you know this one's really not that bad. It's a little bit bigger, but it's not terribly bigger. Coming over the top, if you take a look here, you can see some of the differences. You can see that the Sccy is a bit thicker than the SIG, up into including the red dot. You can see that whole thing is just a little bit bigger. And then, of course, from the back, you can see you've got your red dot and your grip. So your main difference is just the your width, and of course your grip is going to be a little bit different. So I think that's a pretty good example. Another example that I was going to use here, just to kind of let you see, is the Baby Glock. Because the Baby Glock is a pistol I've carried a lot over the years. And this is the 27. Of course, the 26 is a 9mm version of that. But if you look at it, you can see the Sccy is a pretty good size comparison with the Baby Glock. It's actually just a little bit smaller. When you take a look at it, overall, the Sccy is a little bit smaller pistol than the Baby Glock, except for in the grip length. The grip is going to be, a bit larger. But it's always good, I think, to get some examples, something that's going to be close as far as the size, and that's mainly, once again, not about features. It's mainly about how it's going to feel on your body. Comfort, carrying the pistol, because after all, that's what we're talking about, is carry pistols. So if you look at it, it's not that much bigger than a 365, and it's a little smaller than a baby Glock. So that's not bad. Alright, well, we're going to go ahead and talk about the features here. So, Sccy's been making pistols for a long time, and they've been in that more affordable range of pistols. This is actually the second Sccy pistol I've ever had my hands on, and it's been a long time since I shot the last one. Now, looking at this, of course, this is the Crimson Trace model. So we're going to do our overview of features here, but I want to start with the Crimson Trace just because there's always questions that come up on these. Now, if you look, the fit's pretty good. When you look at the slide, this optic is pretty close. I can barely catch my finger on the side of it. So it's a pretty good fit for the cutout that they make here. And of course, it mounts up with a couple of screws. Now, this is the configuration where the battery is underneath, and of course they do that a lot on these. So you've got your little lithium cell. You have to take the two screws off and remove the sight to replace the battery. Now, before you start thinking that's a real big deal, the battery life that they're quoting on this it was crazy, like 20,000 hours or something like that. So you're probably not going to have to change that battery very often, and when you do, it's not that big a deal to take that off. And of course, they give you, a toolkit for this that includes your little hex wrenches and all that kind of good stuff. But anyway, this particular Crimson Trace, it's motion activated, auto on only. So when you pick it up, you can look down through here so you can see the red dot is turned on. If you want to get a little bit better look at that, what I can do is change the lighting here just a little bit so you can get a better look at that. And the other reason I want to do that is because the Crimson Trace is a auto dimming as well. So it's not just auto on, it auto dims. And if you look, you can see that now that we're in the dark, you've got a much more pronounced red dot because it is self-adjusted. So just wanted you to see that. Let's return our lighting to normal here and get back on to business here. But looking at it, you can see that you've got your adjustments here, of course. This particular setup, as you can see, they've got a little notch in the back because you've got your white dot sight in the front. You've got a notch out of the Crimson Trace, and that lets you use the back of it as a regular sight if your battery goes out. But see, you can very easily co-witness this together. So from a standpoint of the usability of the optic, I'm already pretty impressed because, we're talking about a pistol that's, less than half the price of this one. Now, granted, this is the P365 SIG. It's got a lot of great things going on, but it is a high-priced pistol. So considering that something like this is less than half the money, we're already doing pretty good as far as the optic goes. Now, this has a double action only trigger, and it is a hammer fired. The hammer is inside, and just before we start playing with that, we're gonna do a little safety check here, let you see that we are clear. You can see the feed ramp and the barrel. You can see that we are empty. We are safe and we are clear, and of course that's an empty magazine. So looking at it, it is a double action trigger. Like I said, once again, the hammer is hidden on the inside there. You can kind of see it move. You can see it come to the back there. whenever you pull the trigger. And you've got your slide lock here. This is your takedown pin. We'll come to that whenever we show you how to clean it. This is the only thing I'm not super thrilled about is this pin. It's not a deal breaker, but I'll tell you more about that when I get there. You got your magazine release, and of course that is to give you access to these steel magazines. So like I said, this is a 9mm pistol, 10 round capacity plus 1. So you get 2 of these steel magazines with the pistol, which isn't bad. We all know magazines are expensive, so whenever you get an extra magazine with a gun, that's an automatic increase in value as far as I'm concerned. You have some pretty significant slide serrations on the rear, so getting a grip on the slide is not a big deal for whenever you load that initial round into the chamber. And of course, looking at those magazines once again, you can see you have the little extended lip down here on the bottom. Now they give you, if you want to go for more concealability, they give you 2 of these flush plates. So you can change these out if you want to go flush with this. But I tried this, and for me, and once again this is just me, but I have pretty good sized hands. And as you can see, with that gone, I've got 1 finger, 2 finger. I didn't really have much going on here as far as where my finger went. I didn't really like it that much. So to me, this is a much better setup. And for these smaller pistols, it's generally going to be the way to go. Now, the fact that it has finger grooves, it makes it easy to hang on to. So if you're using the flat plate, it's not that big of a deal. But once again, looking at it, the barrel, that's per Sccy, it's machined from bar stock, 7 lands and grooves. The receiver is aircraft grade heat treated aluminum alloy, machined from bar stock. The hammer firing system, once again, this is double action only, internal hammer with inertial firing pin, so supposedly it has protection from firing if it's dropped, but I do think it's interesting how the hammer is hidden inside of there. So, and of course, the texturing on this, it's kind of mild, you know. It's okay. It's not the most grippy surface I've ever had my hand on, but it does have the finger grooves, and so when you factor that in together, it's not too hard to hold on to the pistol. So basically, that's going to be your feature set on the CPX-2. All right, well, we always, of course, take time to show you how to, properly clean your firearm. And so, of course, before we do that, we always have to do our safety check. We're going to remove our magazine, and then we're going to lock the slide back. You can see that we are empty, and we are safe. You can see the barrel is empty. You can see your feed ramp there. Everything is empty. So on this one, what you do is you have your pin here. Now, normally on a pistol like this with a pin, on the other side, you can push it through. Well, you can't do that on this one. So what you have to do is there's a little groove actually in this thing, and what you can do is you can take and protect our finish here. You can come down like this, okay, and then you can pry it slightly outward. You heard the pop, and then once you've done that, this thing, you can pull it right on out just like that, and your pin has been removed. Well, once that's been removed, you can unlock the slide, and then you can just take this straight off the front, just like that. And of course, from here, this is what you would expect. You have your rod and your spring here. It's kind of a small rod and spring here, a little bit different than what you see on a lot. And of course, you've got your barrel. So of course, you're going to just push gently up to clear that, and then you bring that right on out. So in just a matter of a couple of moves there, you have that thing completely disassembled. Now, if you'll notice, this particular pistol, and you'll see different ways of how they do this, but the frame has got this guide that goes all the way down for the slide instead of just a couple of partial points. Now that's still going to be the same as far as oiling. You're going to want to put a drop of oil on both of these because this is where most of your movement's going to take place. And of course, when you clean it, make sure you really concentrate on cleaning out these long, grooves on the inside where it's going to move back and forth, because that's where a lot of your wear is going to take place. So, of course, going back together, it's going to be the reverse order of just what we did. So we're going to take this, make sure the flat side, is toward the top. So you put that back in there, drop it in. You got your spring. There's one end that's smaller. Make sure the small end is going forward. There's a little cutout right here you can see. You put it right in there. And then, of course, you're just going to drop this down. You'll see it push through like this, and that gives you the room you need to drop it down in there. Make sure it's centered like that. And, of course, when you look at it from the side, it should be level. Then all you have to do is take the slide here, realign it, and then come back. Now, this is where it's not necessarily tricky, but you got to pay attention to what you're doing. So come all the way back and relock this. Now the barrel, you got to make sure you hold the barrel forward like this, because on the inside there's a hole that this pin that you took out earlier has to line up with. So make sure you move this to where you see that hole. You can see the silver where the barrel is trying to cover it. Make sure you pull it forward to where that hole is open. And then you take your pin and make sure that the part that has the little notch there for the screwdriver, make sure that's facing up. And so you go down in here and just give it a little twist and push, and you'll hear the snap. Once you hear the snap, it's back in place. You can drop the slide back forward, and you can function check your weapon just like that. And then you've got it back together. And then that is all there is to the cleaning procedure on the CPX-2. Okay, well, let's talk about the range. So, expectations, it's always good to match your expectations with what you're buying. And, I figure for half the price, I wasn't expecting the greatest trigger in the world. I wasn't expecting the greatest performance in the world. But let me tell you what I did experience, and you can make your own judgment. So this particular weapon, this double action trigger, I don't really have an issue with double action triggers. I actually like them because, just a little FYI, they do make another version of this that has a manual safety on it. For those that have to have that in their jurisdiction. Now, this trigger is pretty long. It's advertised as a 9-pound trigger. I measured it out between 8.5 and 9 consistently. And I've had pistols with 8-pound triggers on them before, and that's a lot. When you pull on it, you can really, feel it. You have to pull, it seems like, all the way through, and then at the very last, like at the very, very end of this, it finally breaks. And it's interesting. So when you're shooting this, you have to get used to that longer trigger pull and the fact that it breaks at the very end that way. And it feels a little different than some other triggers, especially if you're coming from a trigger, from a different type of gun, because, this is a hammer-fired pistol. So it's going to be a little bit different feel than a striker fired anyway. But just the difference in the type of trigger, like, for example, if you're used to shooting, say, the 365, okay? Well, the trigger on this, boom. You recycle the slide, and then there's your reset. You see the difference? You've got a really light trigger, and it's got a really short reset. And so the way you shoot the gun, you're going to get used to that feel of that shorter trigger with that shorter reset and that reliable setup. Now, like I say, there's no problem with the trigger. You just have to get used to it. And if this was the gun you were carrying, after you've shot it a few times, you do indeed get used to it. So I didn't experience any failures. I think the only failures I had were on my part, and that was getting used to the trigger. My shots weren't all that great in the beginning. This trigger was so long that it kind of caught me off guard where it was breaking, and so the way I usually hold my pistol and the way I usually, cycle the trigger, it took me a few magazines to really start getting it together. And, I used a variety of ammo with this thing. I've always got S&B. It usually does pretty good. And Blazer and a few others. It did okay. No problems with any of the range ammo. I only use 2 hollow points. I don't typically throw a lot of hollow points away whenever I'm breaking in a gun or trying to see how a gun shoots. But so far, everything that I put through the pistol, it was able to shoot. There wasn't any problems. Now, let's talk about using the Crimson Trace, because the whole idea behind this gun is that they're giving you a optic equipped pistol at a price point that's less than half of the big boys. And I have to say, this little Crimson Trace optic is not bad. I would set it down on the counter and give it a short while and look back, and it does turn itself off. And then of course the minute you pick it up, it's back to business. And as we demonstrated during the features, we saw whenever you darkened it, it automatically got brighter. So in the range, it's a little dim lit. I don't want to say dark, but it's a little bit, seems like more in the shadow in the setup area. And so the dot was showing up pretty good. And acquiring your target with the dot wasn't too bad. And I experimented where I actually had my red dot versus, where I had the sight set up. And there's a lot of ways you can do it. But I tend to co-witness mine where the dot is right there, kind of close to the center, whenever I've got the notch and the front sight lined up, and that works pretty good. Had some new shooters around, of course, that wanted to take a look at it, and although the trigger, like I say, it's a little long, so it takes some getting used to. It was a gun that the overall impression was, for the money, it's not too bad. But it does have a long trigger, and it does take a little getting used to, so you definitely want to keep that in mind if you're going to use that for a carry gun. Okay, so what's it like to carry the CPX-2 as a carry gun? Well, I don't have a ton of holster setups designed around red dot optics because I don't carry a lot of guns in that configuration. But not too long ago, when I picked up the 365X Romeo 0, I had to find a short-term solution for it whenever I was waiting for Kydex to come in. And what I ended up with was something that ended up working for different guns. There's a company called Tagua that makes all kinds of holsters. And they've been making them for a long time. And there's a particular holster that they make that's called the TX4 Victory, and it's this little guy right here. This holster is pretty cool, and mine's a little scratched up here because I've used it a lot. But it can be used. You can see it's got the clip here, so you can go inside the waistband. You can slip the belt all the way through the leather here, and you can wear it outside the waistband. You can wear it on the opposite side of the body as a cross draw, or you can put it in the small of your back. So this little holster is extremely versatile, and what I found is that there's several different sizes, and you can actually take this pistol and it'll go right up to the optic just like that. Okay, now you've got your trigger guard covered, and for a pistol like this, I mean, let's just face facts, there's no retention on these type of holsters anyway. You want it to be snug, but it's not like there's any kind of locking mechanism on one of these. So what you're really looking for is, does it hold the pistol safely? Can you access it? Is it going to protect the pistol adequately? Is it going to make you happy? And this is not a bad little holster setup. I was able to carry this pistol in this holster all day long, and I normally carry it in around the 3 o'clock position, and it was not bad. It was, this is a pretty comfortable little setup. And the gun doesn't feel that heavy, even though when I compare it to my SIG, it seems a bit blockier. It's a 10+1 of 9mm, and it doesn't feel really that much different than other small guns I have with similar capacity. So it's not bad at all. Now, I've got some Kydex ordered. There's a shop locally that does custom Kydex. I'm going to get one of those for this pistol, of course, and see how that does. And there are some other options out there, I'm sure, and I'll look for those as well. But right now, I'm kind of sold on this very simple little holster because, these are very affordable. There's plenty of them. And, of course, they have one just for the CPX-2 available on their site, so you can just get one of those if that's what you like. So as far as everyday comfort, it's really, really not bad. Now, if I compare this pistol to some of my super slim pistols, you can tell that it's just a little bit bigger, but once again, not enough to make it uncomfortable. So for everyday carry, it's not bad. So overall impressions of the Sccy CPX-2 Red Dot. Well, we started off by talking about how it's important to cover, the whole spectrum of pistols. And, on this channel, the focus, obviously, it's all about concealed carry. Not everyone is going to willingly go out and spend $800, $1,000, $1,200 on a carry gun, because a lot of cases they just won't or they can't. And you have to respect that. And these other gun makers, it's not like that everything that's produced below those price points it's not like that they're all junk. We've reviewed a lot of guns that have been lower price points that aren't too bad. So I have to say, if you're thinking about this from a standpoint of value, it's really not that bad. If someone wants to get into a pistol, they don't have a big budget, and they want to have modern features, well, you've got a self-dimming, auto-on, motion-activated Crimson Trace, and that is on a 9mm pistol that has 10+1 capacity, so you've got plenty of ammunition, and it's a hammer-fired pistol with the hammer hidden. So as far as safety, there's nothing to drag on the rear because the hammer is enclosed. And of course, they do make a version of this with a manual safety if that's what you want. Now, like I say, it does have some things about it that are a little bit different. And I don't know whether it's just from a lack of engineering these things out or whether that's just how they wanted the gun to be. But like I said, the grip is a little bit thicker than I would have expected. That's probably just a result of, how they wanted this to be. There's no back straps that are changeable, so if this thickness doesn't work for your hand, then you would need to pick something else. A lot of times if a gun has a comfort issue, you can change the back strap or you can change a plate and you can do something about it. But on this one, you need to be happy with the way it feels because that's the way it's going to be. You can change the magazines once again. If you want to put the flush plates on there, you can make it a little more concealable. But honestly, this isn't a big deal and it doesn't really add that much to it whenever you're trying to conceal the weapon. Like I said, the only real issue I have with this gun, and it's not a deal breaker, probably for most, is just it's got a long trigger that breaks at the very, very, very end. And for me, that's just not a feel that I like. That's just because I'm used to shooting guns that feel completely different. And I want some consistency as far as the weapons that I carry as to how they feel. It's a good solid 8-9 pounds, and you can feel it. And after shooting it repeatedly, I'm sure it is something that, you can get used to. And it's probably not a big deal for most people. Like I say, it's all a matter of perspective. Everything is relative. If you're used to shooting, a 4.5-pound trigger with a short reset, and you pick up something that has an 8-pound trigger, well, you're automatically going to feel like it's an issue. But if you shoot something with a longer trigger like this consistently, well, then that's what you shoot. And there's no reason why you can't do that. So, we're talking about a pistol that has some pretty good features built in, because just being a hammer-fired gun is pretty safe. The hammer is enclosed. 8.5, 9-pound trigger pull, that's a safety all by itself, because you're not going to just accidentally drop this thing, and you're not going to hook it on something. You're not going to accidentally get your finger and pull, 8, 9 pounds of trigger pull. That's going to take some real effort. So there's some safety inherent to that. So if you're looking for a pistol that has good capacity, that has a nice optic built in, and the optic operates automatically, both in motion and in dimming, and you're trying to keep your budget friendly, the Sccy CPX-2 is not a bad way to go. Just make sure your expectations are realistic, about the trigger and how it feels, because it is a different type of trigger feel than your high-end, your really, really elite priced firearms. But having said that, it's comfortable to carry. It was pretty consistent to shoot, and after you get used to it, you can do pretty well with it. So overall, it's a good value entry for someone who's looking for a defensive handgun. All right. Well, that's going to do it for today. Like I say, once again, we really appreciate all of our subscribers and people that are watching. Once again, if you haven't had the opportunity to subscribe, please do so. Find that little button over there on the right-hand lower portion of your screen and give that a smash there for us. If you're on a mobile device, scroll down below the video and hit subscribe, hit the bell icon. It'll let you know whenever we do something new. It really does help us out a lot, and we can't thank you enough. So we'll be back soon with another video for you. Of course, as always, everybody be safe, and we can't thank you enough. Have a good day.